The first time I thought about killing myself, I was 3. I had been assaulted by a cousin, sexually assaulted from the time that I was 3 to 6, and assaulted by 2 women before the age of 6. That was the first time that I started to think about suicide, think about really horrible things like violence against the people who hurt me. And it started to really manifest when I finally told people about it when I was 12. And that manifested in just self-hatred, because in turn I had assaulted 3 children before my 12th birthday. So the illness manifested as severe bipolar, manifested as self-hatred, as depression, as suicidal tendencies, as incredible violence, both towards my brother and towards my family in general, and just not being able to communicate about anything that had happened to me. So I was 12, and I had been not formally diagnosed with being bipolar. I had been diagnosed when I was 14 as anorexia NOS. In other words, we don't know what she has, but she's really skinny, but she doesn't have all of the other symptoms, like thinking that she's too fat or not eating or all of these things. So I was put in the hospital when I was 15. I left my parents' home because of alcoholism and abuse when I was 14 and lived on the street from the time that I was 14 to 19, interspersed with going to youth emergency shelter, correctional facilities, mental illness wards, and just continually being put there and physically abused or emotionally abused. And then I just eventually left because the system wasn't helping me whatsoever. I went on to an enormous amount of drugs: lithium, Ativan, Effexor, Zoloft, Paxil, Prozac, and they just did a lot of damage to my body. When I look back at them, they were actually to a level where an adult shouldn't be taking it per day, and I was 14 and maybe 100, probably about 95 pounds. So they did a lot of damage to my body, which was very hard. I found a foster home when I was 18. I was placed with a family in my city, and I lived with them until I was 19. I was still on drugs. I was still told that I had anorexia, and the proof for anorexia is that you deny you have it. So if you deny you have an illness, you obviously have it. And then I was just like, that's crap. I'm not doing this anymore. And so I had a boyfriend, Brad, who is now my best friend, that I met when I was 19, when I was working in the dinner theater. And he helped me to detox, just cold turkey. I just said, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And for the next 2 to 3 years, I just cried every single day for, 14 hours a day. I mean, I kept jobs in between, but every time I went home, that's all I did. I would cry through my sleep, because everything that I had experienced when I had originally gone into the treatment centers, I said, I need to deal with sexual abuse issues. That is my issue, is having been abused at such a young age. And they said, oh, well, we'll label something else so that we can deal with what's not there, because there was no treatment whatsoever for dealing with traumatic sexual abuse at that time during the early 90s. I had been to multiple psychiatrists, multiple psychologists, multiple social workers, multiple treatment facilities. And I just said, I'm not doing this anymore. This isn't helping me. So for 3 years, I just cried. So my bipolar manifested as not necessarily manic. I don't really go manic. I go to a normal level, but my depressive levels could last for maybe 4 months, and I would lie in bed just crying and hating myself for having let myself be sexually assaulted and having in turn assaulted other people, and just the self-hatred that was there. I would cry for 4 months. I wouldn't get out of bed for 4 months. Couldn't shower, couldn't eat. And that makes you lose a lot of weight. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't drive. I couldn't go out of the house. I couldn't do anything. And so that bipolar really took, at times, I would say, half of my life away, because when you're in bed for 4 to 6 months out of a year, you don't really have a lot that you can do with the rest of the time, because you're busy sleeping and hating yourself. The process of getting on the program was, I had been dealing with a lot of bowel problems and digestion problems from the psych meds. I couldn't digest anything. My body would not process food. And it was really, really hard, because when you don't have nutrition from the food that you're not digesting, you can't possibly be well. So when I started, I just started really slowly on like 1 tablet, then 2 tablets, and I went up to 20 a day for probably the first year. And it was hard because I started to feel like, I mean, I had been feeling these really, really long depressive phases, even after, because I had been detoxed from the meds for 6 years by then, since 2000. I was still having these long, long bouts of just depression and just hating being in the cold and living in the dark for half the winter. And yeah, and then I started to really, really feel the difference by like the next month. It was like, Cynthia's there. Cynthia's capable of like starting to be able to get back her life. And I was able to take care of my stepdaughter for 3 years, her and my ex-common-law. And being able to do those things and being able to cook for myself and being able to take care of a home, like those were completely impossible for me. And being able to study was a huge, huge step. Now I can sit and I can read without that kind of, the depression, without the self-hatred, without the feelings of anger towards myself. I can study, I can read, I can go out and like experience the opera and experience music, and those are really, really good things that I started to find after I was able to go through and start the Truehope, and that happened within a month. But yeah, I mean, my parents now might possibly think that their drugs and trying to commit me to an institution for the rest of my life isn't the best policy. Heather and Corey, my music instructors, definitely see a huge difference of the emotional work that I've been doing with my psychologist using EMDR and the Truehope. I talk to everybody that has a mental illness now about there's a potential to not be on drugs. You have to make that choice, and you have to make sure that you have the supports that you need, and Truehope support on the phone is a huge support.